Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the CRTPO Technical Coordinating Committee. This is May 2nd, 2024, and the time is now 10:03. We're calling this meeting to order. We'll start with introductions around the table. To my left,
Rich Hoffman, Iredell County.
Aaron Tucker, Town of Cornelius.
Heather Maloney, Town of Huntersville.
Erica Martin, Town of Morrisville.
Todd Huntsinger, Indian Trail.
Bjorn Hansen, Union County.
James Kelly, Town of Waxhaw.
Justin Russell, Town of Stallings.
Matt Kirkendall, City of Statesville.
Andrew Ventresca, Town of Troutman.
Travis Johnson, CRTPO.
Liz Babson, City of Charlotte.
Candace Rory, Charlotte Planning.
Dan Lever, Charlotte General Services.
Irene Ivy, Public Health Focus Area.
Neil Paniker, NCDOT Division 12.
Gwen Cook, Greenway Focus Area.
Brian Horton, Katz, MTC Rep.
Dave Campbell, Bicycle Focus Area, Charlotte DOT.
Andrew Golden, Town of Davidson.
Sean Epperson, NCDOT.
Dana Stujenki, Town of Matthews.
Steve Fry, Town of Mid Hill.
And now we'll take a moment and go into the audience, starting with Neil.
Neil Burke, CRTPO.
Andy Grimsky, Central Iowa Regional Council.
Ray Von Walker, Town of
Jennifer Stafford, CRTPO.
Martin Kettleman, Charlotte DOT.
Aaron Pratt, Charlotte DOT. Ethan Smith, Town of Waxhaw Park and Rec. Diane Thomas, Public Health Focus Area Alternate.
Martin Cooksey, Turnpike Authority.
Lee Ainsworth, NCDOT.
Michelle Bedeswa, McAdams.
Scott Miller, NCDOT.
Loretta Barron, Federal Highway Administration.
Jerry Ashley, City of Statesville.
Bob Cook, CRTPO.
Sean Hardy, Town of Matthews.
Snyder, CRTPO.
Leo Thompson, CRTPO.
Peter Wayne, CRTPO. Juan Morales, Vaughn.
Good day, CRTPO.
Jerome Leonard, CRTPO.
All right, thank you and welcome, everyone. Our first order of business is to adopt today's agenda. May I have a motion?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? That carries unanimously. Next, we need to adopt today's consent agenda. May I have a motion for the approval of the April 4th, 2024 TCC minutes? And a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries unanimously. And now moving on to our item of business. We're going to hear from Neil Burke and get an update on the we're going to take action on the 2055 MTP.
Thank you, Liz. Good morning, everybody. So this is an action item this morning before the TCC. The action is to recommend that the CRTPO board approve the start of a public comment period in early June to receive public input on the proposed goals and objectives and on candidate projects for the 2055 Metropolitan Transportation Plan. So within the presentation this morning, we're going to review the process to update the goals and objectives. Going to provide an overview of what public engagement looks like in terms of outreach throughout the planning area, and then close with ongoing work and next steps in the process to develop the MTP. Starting with the goals and objectives, what's different for the 2055 MTP process? Well, there's two different factors that are influencing the scope and the development of the goals and objectives. The first is the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, and then also CRTPO's federal certification review that occurred last year. So within IIJA, there are these 6 notable themes that we're hoping to incorporate within the goals and objectives and throughout the planning process. And then also CRTPO underwent a federal certification review that was administered by the Federal Highway Administration and Federal Transit Administration back in June of 2023. And we received 3 recommendations within the certification review. The first of which is environmental mitigation to address resiliency and stormwater. The second is congestion mitigation process to coordinate with stakeholders to implement our CMP procedures. And then the last is tourism planning to consult with local travel and tourism agencies to better address needs. Moving into the goals and objectives, these are meant to be high level to guide the plan development and future initiatives. For the 2055 MTP, the initial staff and consultant assessment indicates that major changes are not necessary. The goals and objectives have been initially reviewed by the steering committee and the advisory committee. We anticipate that review process to be ongoing, throughout May and also throughout the public engagement period, which we envision to begin in early June. We envision a 30-day public comment period on the goals and objectives and on the transportation priorities. Obviously, the results of the public comment period and the final revisions by the advisory committee will be presented to the TCC and the CRTPO board for adoption, most likely in July or maybe August. And so the process to update the goals and objectives to date, these began with the 2050 MTP goals and objectives. And I want to remind the TCC that when we were developing the 2050 MTP goals and objectives, there was an extensive review process to really ensure that these goals and objectives, for the most part, would kind of carry through several different MTP development processes. That's not to say that there is not any latitude for change at this time with the 2055 MTP, but we really were intentional about choosing our goals wisely and some objectives that would stand the test of time. The next step was really staff review and consultant review, and that kind of reinforced that major changes were not necessary. The steering committee review, current draft reflects the steering committee feedback. And then earlier this week, we had our first advisory committee meeting. Several TCC members sit on the advisory committee, and we got good feedback. And they had just started that process. They just really had started reviewing these this week. And so we anticipate the advisory committee's review process to be ongoing for the next several weeks. So the proposed timeline, again, the steering committee met on April 15th. The advisory committee received the steering committee's goals and objectives updates and are in the process of providing initial feedback at this time. I'm here today to ask for action to recommend to the CRTPO board. And then these will be presented obviously on May 15th at the CRTPO board meeting with that request to open a public comment period. And then, with the public engagement period anticipated to start in early June, like I said, the steering and advisory committee, the TCC, the board, residents will continue to review these goals and objectives and provide comments. So what I'm going to do, the next several slides show our 6 goals and objectives. And within each goal, I'll show the first version, which is the clean version coming out of the 2050 MTP. And there's color coding that's associated with this. So any objective that is marked yellow addresses what we believe is an IIJA emphasis area. And then anything that is marked green addresses a certification review recommendation, and anything that's in that teal color, we believe to address both IIJA and certification review. So I'm not going to read through the goals and objectives individually. I want the TCC really to focus more on the process to date. And again, the TCC will have an opportunity to review these in detail. So again, clean version from the 2050 MTP for goal 1. And then this is the steering committee marked up version within goal 1. You can see that the track changes there are some initial revisions. And then anything that is kind of squared off like that, objective 1.2 means that we had some really meaningful discussion at the advisory committee. And again, that advisory committee meeting just occurred on Tuesday. So staff and the consultants are in the process of really reviewing these comments, summarizing these comments, and then providing responses back to the advisory committee. So moving into goal 2, again, this is the clean version from the 2050 MTP. There are 7 objectives within goal 2. And then there was some track changes, revisions here. And I just do want to point out, the significant discussion around objective 2.3 from the advisory committee on Tuesday. Goal 3, this is the version from the 2050 MTP. There are 3 objectives associated with Goal 3. And moving into the initial review of the 2055 MTP, we are proposing to add 3 new objectives here. 3.4 addresses an IIJA emphasis area around greenhouse gases. 3.5 addresses what we believe to be IIJA emphasis and certification review around stormwater impacts. And then 3.6 also addresses both certification and IIJA emphasis areas in terms of resilience policy. Moving into Goal 4, again, this is the version from the 2050 MTP. There are 3 objectives associated with Goal 4 that we believe address IIJA emphasis areas. And within this one, there was a minor text update that the steering committee recommended, but then there was also a lot of good discussion around Objective 4.2 at the advisory committee earlier this week. Moving into Goal 5, 3 objectives within Goal 5 from the 2050 MTP. And not any text changes yet with the steering committee, but again, the advisory committee had some significant discussion around Objective 5.1. And lastly, Goal 6 from the 2050 MTP, there are 4 objectives associated with Goal 6. And we're actually proposing to combine objectives 1 and 2 up there. That's what you see in the track changes, and also add a new objective 6.4 regarding the travel and tourism recommendation within the certification review. So that is where we're at so far with the goals and objectives. I do have some additional content regarding public engagement and next steps, but I do want to just pause and see if there are any questions or comments so far from the TCC. Go ahead, Bjorn.
As one of the members of, what am I on the advisory committee?
Yes.
Okay, just making sure. The discussion was pretty animated, and I do really appreciate that the areas that were under discussion were called out with the red boxes, because we were really close to this meeting and there's not a whole lot of opportunity for some iterations. And so really it's pushing it out for public comment as well as by the committee members, so that we can come back in June and hopefully finalize things.
Okay, moving into public engagement. So within the 2055 MTP development process, there are 3 phases of public engagement. The first is around the project kickoff and identifying transportation needs. The second phase, this will be next year, March of 2025 through May, is really about the draft recommendations feedback when we have that draft fiscally constrained project list. And then the third phase of public engagement is when we're further along in the planning process and we have a draft plan in hand. We're undergoing the air quality conformity process leading up to the adoption of the MTP in March of 2026. So what's different about engagement between the 2050 and the 2055 MTPs? Well, 2050, we began that plan update in July of 2020 during the COVID pandemic. So, fortunately, mostly unfortunately, it was almost exclusively virtual. So that's everything from the steering committee, advisory committee, TCC and board presentations, and obviously public engagement. So, I mean, there's benefits and drawbacks to that. You can reach more people through public engagement virtually. However, it's difficult to reach, environmental justice population. So with the 2055 MTP engagement, still lean on some of those digital engagement tools, but we'll incorporate more pop-up events. We're anticipating about 20 and targeted engagement to equity focus groups and conducting stakeholder interviews in person. And really the goal with the 2055 engagement is to connect with areas and communities that we haven't heard from as much, especially within the 2050 MTP. So a little more detail about phase 1, beginning in early June. We're finalizing the exact dates of that now. We'll get that out to you as soon as possible. But again, the purpose is raising awareness and identifying needs and focusing on outreach that reviews the goals and objectives, communicates the existing conditions for the MPO, identifies needs for each of the transportation modes. So phase one public comment period, it's again proposed to start in early June for 30 days. The public will weigh in on the goals and objectives, the transportation needs and candidate projects, and the vision for transportation throughout the three-county planning area. And residents can participate by using the website for digital engagement opportunities, connecting with the project team at local events, and attending CRTPO, TCC, and board meetings. So the 2055 MTP website, this will really serve as the project hub where we'll have a lot of our significant documents and mapping. Anything that residents can virtually engage with us will be housed, 2055mtp.org. Updates on ongoing activities and project process. And I will say that it's kind of in its beta version right now. It'll be an iterative process where as the plan development process continues on towards that March 2026 deadline, we'll continue to add additional information and update it to really be a good resource for everybody within this planning area. So this is a snapshot of the interactive mapping. We'll be using social pinpoint this time, and residents and stakeholders will be able to use this for phase one to identify multimodal transportation needs, deficiencies, frustration points, hotspots, and then the outcome of that is once the public comment period concludes, all of that data will be made available to the TCC members that are going to be submitting roadway projects in early 2025. And again, it can inform your project list. It's not a mandate that you submit projects around this, but hopefully you use it as kind of a measuring stick against maybe some of your local priorities within CRTPO's CTP as projects to consider for evaluation. Again, the phase one promotional tools, we're planning on using promotional flyers, videos, social media postings, newsletters, radio interviews, webinars, and website updates. So you can see it's kind of a mixture again of tools that will help us for in-person engagement as well as remote engagement. So ongoing work and next steps, we're in the data gathering and research phase right now, which will lead to an existing conditions report. And that will also inform something that we talked about last month in terms of the state of the region workshop. We're tentatively planning for that before the July CRTPO board meeting. It'll be a joint workshop where we'll really kind of look at some of the scenario planning that we've done associated with the 2050 MTP, as well as what are the existing conditions in terms of the transportation network, here in Charlotte, and how can that inform the 2055 development process. Phase one engagement, again, that'll start next month. And one other thing we're going to be starting on, once we're finished with the data gathering process, is the revenue forecast, and that will inform the projects that we can include within the fiscally constrained project list that we'll be developing after the project evaluation process. So again, a lot of information before you this morning, but the action before the TCC is on the screen, and I'm happy to take any questions that you all have about the action or the process in general.
Thank you, Neil. Any questions? All right. May I have a motion to recommend that the CRTPO board approve the start of a public comment period in early June to receive public input on the proposed goals and objectives and on candidate projects for the 2055 MTP?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. All those in favor, say, any further discussion? All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries unanimously. All right, moving on to our second item of business. We're going to hear from Brian and Will, and they're going to share with us some information to take action on the Safe Streets and Roads for All application.
Thank you. Just me today. Unfortunately, Brian's out with us right now, but hi folks, Will Snyder, Associate Planner with the CRTPO. We've been providing y'all some information about our Safe Streets for All application, and today we'll be making an action request of you. So our action requested today is recommend that the CRTPO board adopt a resolution in support of the CRTPO's Safe Streets and Roads for All application. And I'll go through our presentation a little bit abbreviated this time, but providing you all some context around what the program is, why we're choosing to apply, some of the benefits to our jurisdictions, ultimately the local in-kind match requirement that we'll be asking of our jurisdictions, and then I'll throw that action request back on the screen for you. So as an overview, the Safe Streets and Roads for All grant program is a product of IIJA. Neil's presentation is actually a great launch pad for this presentation. So there's a set of requirements under IIJA, and then there's quite a bit of funding under this program. Billions have already been allocated under this, and now we're expecting over $3 billion available in future funding rounds. So really trying to take advantage of this alternative funding stream for our region. The focus of this program, though, is to improve roadway safety for all users by reducing fatalities and injuries on our roadways. It does so through the National Roadway Safety Strategy through USDOT, and then the Safe System approach, which is a largely recognized approach to reducing fatalities and injuries. The program does this through planning and demonstration grants, the ultimate goal being that you are developing and adopting an action plan, a safety action plan. Through this, you may conduct some supplemental safety planning, carry out demonstration activities, which are essentially quick build type activities, paint on the ground, bollards on the ground, trying to test maybe some pilot projects under the recommendations of the plan. And we have heard from USDOT that it is very undersubscribed in the planning part of the program. And so again, really trying to take advantage of that on an MPO scale. And then as I just shared, the ultimate deliverable of that is a comprehensive safety action plan. So focused on our roadways, quite a bit of data analysis, and at an MPO scale, a really comprehensive overview of all of our jurisdictions through things like a high injury network, road safety audits, to really understand our risks in our infrastructure. And those plans may ultimately born themselves as Vision Zero plans, other safety action plans. We're familiar with several of our jurisdictions who have those or are in the process of adopting those. And so there's quite a few different benefits. But under this program, you're required to have a safety action plan in order to reapply for capital planning. They call them implementation dollars, but you can think of it as a capital grant program. So lots of benefits for us to do that at the MPO level. We heard from our transportation staff group back in November during a survey that we hosted that the top two priorities are bicycle, pedestrian, and traffic safety. So we know that there's a flavor for this in the region. We know that there's quite a bit of need for alternative funding for safety planning. We recently submitted another round to the FY24 Rebuilding American Infrastructure with Sustainability and Equity. We submitted a new application to that. We've submitted twice prior. In 2022, it was a very competitive program at the time and still is, but it was pretty new and certainly very competitive. So we scored well, but we're just in a pool of lots of other really in-need projects. This last round, we scored very well and we're very close. And so really we're motivated to go for it one more time. This is 100% federally funded in our disadvantaged communities. So there's no local match requirement. A $5 million application is what we submitted back in late February. So crossing our fingers, we're really hoping to hear back on that later this summer. And then, of course, USDOT is encouraging MPOs to apply. So again, we're in a great position to be able to do this across jurisdictional boundaries, to be able to have a really unified plan for all of y'all. And then, of course, to ultimately have safety data systems that you can use in your own local planning. So we see that benefit pretty well. I want to highlight a question actually from Andrew Van Treska on behalf of Troutman. He asked, Troutman's considering adopting their own safety action plan or applying for funds to do so. Would plugging into the MPO's plan save them money to do that? And our resounding answer is yes. It's really pennies on the dollar is what we've been telling folks for jurisdictions to participate in our plan versus going after your own funding, doing your own project management and consultant scoping. We'll do that on a regional level for you. Some examples of those demonstration projects. So we have feasibility studies, as I mentioned, maybe you're testing out a bike lane or some other type of safety pilot. You can do so. They call them high intensity, low cost, quick build projects. So you can see here, they're doing that with cones and paint, pretty straightforward and over a short period of time to be able to study the outcomes. You can do MUTCD engineering studies, so regulatory studies that are currently adopted under the Manual Uniform of Traffic Control Devices. If you're maybe wanting to do a feasibility study around some of those, you can do so there. Behavioral operational pilots, so public education, really trying to shift the culture on safety and making people more aware of their decisions on our roadways. And then new technology pilots. So thinking about ITS, maybe you're piloting or thinking about piloting some sort of new technology. You can do that as a demonstration project, which is really neat about this program. Want to highlight our application budget. So we will be requesting a federally funded share of $4 million from USDOT. NCDOT has agreed to provide us with a $500,000 offset to our local match requirement, and the remaining 10% needed will be from in-kind match from our jurisdictions. And so that leads us to a total project cost of $5 million. The next slide I'll show you are the in-kind hours that we're requesting, and that's based off of our 2013 MOU to really be able to allocate those hours to each jurisdiction. I want to be very clear on this slide. At one point, very early in the strategy, we were really debating asking y'all for a cash match. So that would be the actual monetary match amounts. We've been advised very strongly by USDOT that in-kind matching is not taken advantage enough and really is a, for lack of better terms, easy way to get this match. So I'll come back to this if we would like to, but what I want to do is talk to y'all about what this actually means. So this is a mix of staff time. So we are assuming an hourly rate plus fringe benefits over the life of the study. The hourly rate being about $58 median. We can kind of have some play within that number, but it's mainly comprised of staff time, but can also be comprised of facility rates. So whatever rate your community center, library is charging to host a community meeting, charge that to us through the grant. $100 per hour, $200 per hour, whatever that may be. And then material costs. So if you're doing a local public engagement activity on behalf of the study and are printing flyers, banners, again, these are resources we're providing you, but maybe you're printing them in-house, charge that to the grant. That's in-kind hours or in-kind value. So being very clear that this is actually a pretty achievable, easy way to really hit some of these local hour requirements. Just to give you all an idea of what that can look like. So you have 3 staff at 3 different pay levels that are working on a project related to the study, coordinating meetings, doing data analysis, getting ready for public engagement. They're working X number of hours, ultimately getting your total value and in kind. You're hosting a public event, you're renting the space, you have those same staff working that time. That's 28 hours in this whole process that you've already knocked out. And we're being, I think, pretty conservative on these numbers too. There's quite a bit that you can achieve with some different activities here. So really our next steps is, again, pending our action request today, we will put this in front of our board later this month on the 15th. Our application deadline is the following day. So we're being pretty aggressive with this, but we found out that the August cycle is actually going to be much more competitive with the new reauthorization. So we bumped our application deadline up to May. And then we will anticipate an award announcement in August. So lots of potential funding coming into the CRTPO over the next couple of months. I'll put our request back on screen. Any questions before we do so? Couple questions, yes. Whoever, yeah.
So Heather Maloney with Huntersville, by agreeing or recommending that we apply for this, are we committing our town to those in-kind hours that you just put up on the screen?
So we will go through that process after we submit the application. This is a recommendation to the board recommending and supporting the application going forward. Once we get through that process and submit the application, we'll work through some of those local agreements on getting the in-kind. So this is not your full commitment to the hours that I showed on screen at this point.
Has CRTPO adopted a resolution in support of Vision Zero? And if not, is that something we need to do as part of this effort?
In support of what? I'm sorry.
Vision Zero.
Vision Zero. We have not. I will say something that's in the pipeline for us is a complete streets policy that will kind of focus on more of the design piece of our roadways, which Travis is spearheading. So that's in progress. That would probably be the closest thing to a Vision Zero type adoption. But no, not to date have we adopted a Vision Zero policy right? Yeah. Yeah.
Another question.
Mhm.
You had that slide where you had like 4 examples of demonstration
Yeah.
projects. So does your application include like a certain amount dedicated for demonstration projects that member jurisdictions would be able to participate in, or how's that going to work?
So again, we'll hammer that out. We've heard from NCDOT that our $5 million planning grant is actually really generous. So we think there's going to be a lot of flex to really be able to pilot quite a few demonstration projects across many different jurisdictions. So our budget's very healthy to be able to do so.
Sorry,
Yeah.
more questions. Will this study, it's 100% dedicated to the areas that are like underserved? Like if we're a jurisdiction that doesn't have underserved areas, are we not really served by this?
No, so the RAISE application is the one that is 100% federal funding, still focusing on safety, but more targeted engagement and data analysis in our disadvantaged communities. Safe Streets for All, you can think of that as filling in the balance of the planning area with everyone receiving a safety study, safety data, demonstration projects. Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
So you took away part of my question, because I remember we were asking for money before, and that was something I had a question about. But several of the communities in the CRTPO region already have Vision Zero plans adopted, or are doing work in the safe, or have Safe Streets and Roads for All projects that they've already applied for and are working on right now. I'm curious to know, I kind of hinted at this your last presentation with asking about this, but like if they're working on their own individual safety plans or enacting those plans, will that also count, even if it's not specifically about CRTPO's potential awarding of this grant? Will that work for their in-kind if they're doing safety planning, just generally speaking, and not specifically for this plan?
Sure. So we've heard from USDOT that double dipping itself, so actually working on both and kind of, I guess, charging both programs at the same time is not allowed. What we are finding though, and we've been working with all of our jurisdictions that we know of that currently have Safe Streets funding or a Vision Zero plan or safety plan locally, we're finding that everyone to some degree has some sort of recommendation or demonstration project that they now want to carry forward from their study. So we're not very concerned about the need to be able to do that, because ultimately, if your study is currently in progress, you're probably going to be finished or at least close to being finished by the time we're ready to pick up, because we're going to have to do all the grant agreements, scope a consultant, identify a consultant. So timeline wise, we're not too concerned about that, if that answers your question. There really shouldn't be conflict about charging both programs or 2 different awards at the same time from the same program.
That's helpful. Thank you. As a kind of a follow-up, do you anticipate this planning process to result? So you kind of, this is kind of a gateway towards those implementation dollars. Is kind of a goal of this plan to have some sort of, I don't know, I wouldn't say a guaranteed, project, but like a project, several projects for each jurisdiction within the CRTPO boundaries at the end of the planning study?
So the recommendations may prioritize certain areas to target for additional planning or to just go ahead and go after capital dollars for. This doesn't guarantee any capital awards, I think is a key point. But one of the pieces of this that USDOT and just the administration in general is really being clear about is collaboration. So if you're showing that you have a plan from the MPO that you worked with them on and is now a regional connect to everything else that's taking place, there's a lot more, I guess, scoring benefits and kind of more criteria that you can benefit from if you choose to go under a capital grant program, either from Safe Streets or another one.
Okay.
Going to follow up on that?
Yeah. Let me just follow up.
Yeah.
So in my mind, we'll end up with a high injury network for all our towns.
Yep.
And we can make, rank projects through that. And maybe at some point, the discretionary grants program actually awards a few extra points or something like that on their applications for funds. So there's some options there, but I could see not only as a regional list, but actually as at a town level Does that help answer? your
I think so. I mean, I think, yeah, I figured it would probably identify high injury networks. And so it would be up to the community to decide like what they want to do to address a safety situation on that high net. So it wouldn't be like, we suggest that on so-and-so road and so-and-so community, you do this. It'll be instead saying this road is dangerous, and let the community decide how they want to approach trying to reduce injuries and fatalities on it.
I think so, but I think there should be enough funds in there to have some recommendations from the consultant. So whether or not they're, move forward for actual capital projects would be up to the town.
Thank you.
Were the hours, I know you said you're still working through all that, but are the hours based on like staff size or population, or just where did those numbers come from?
Right now, the hours are a direct translation from the MOU cost share. So again, originally we provided that number in a cash amount. We've just translated that, again, assuming that $58 median staff time pay. And this doesn't even, incorporate, again, the facilities and material costs that can really knock that number down pretty quickly. So.
I have a question.
Yes.
If we're not able to provide the in-kind match by the end of the study, will we just get a bill, I guess? Hopefully we would, but I'm just trying to plan for everything.
Of course, yeah. Very preemptively, we are going to do everything to make sure that that doesn't happen. So we'll work with you on your current resources. So USDOT is not requiring us to do like a super complex tracking system for this, but we're choosing to. There's always the possibility of an audit, but we also think that there's just a lot of benefit to really keeping tabs on our community is able to keep up with the requirements. Do we need to shift some requirements? So we'll make sure that that doesn't lead to that. Yeah.
I'll just add that we will also try to work with volunteers outside of y'all, which could really bring these numbers down. So we'll suggest, Wells Fargo, for example, does some painting effort or, host an event. This is going to bring all these hours down. So we need to work through that still, but yeah, I hope nobody has to write a check.
Yeah. Yeah. Part of the grant will be a private partnerships piece that can knock down these numbers as well. So it's a very flexible type of way to pay for the match.
Will?
Yes.
I'm drafting the memo to my board in my head as we go here. So
Sure. Yeah.
Help me explain why Mint Hill would invest 173 hours or $10,000. Or basically fact check me, I guess. The 5 million is just for the study.
Correct.
Will or will not be any tangible projects? Because I keep hearing those demo projects like painted circles, or there could be some of that in some areas. Okay. But basically it's like a CTP for safety projects. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Sure. Yeah. So as Jennifer pointed out, the recommendations can suggest specific corridors and intersections. But overall, currently we have a lack of an understanding comprehensively of where our highest injuries are taking place today. And I think part of that is really informed by understanding our infrastructure today. If there's a roadway that has a lot of injuries, does it congruently not have a good sidewalk or bikeway system on it? It's a real comprehensive look at everything. That can certainly inform the discretionary type projects that Mint Hill may submit to us. It can inform your own local priorities with roadway investments. I think in terms of the data systems, that's a big benefit. The demonstration projects piece, from the recommendations, if you're interested in locally trying a new sort of pilot project, again, maybe trying some bike lanes, maybe trying a roundabout type application, it's a really flexible program. You can really try a lot of different types of applications. This would be a great time to pilot that locally if that's something you want to do local implementation with. And then that would probably be really the two biggest pieces of some of the recommendations, just being able to inform you about your local safety priorities.
And those pilot projects would be funded in that 5 million somehow?
Correct.
They could, okay.
Yeah, this is a very healthy planning grant, so we have quite a bit of flexibility in that.
Jennifer, we had some brainstorming probably a year ago, maybe, when IIJA first became a topic of discussion. Is this a continuation of that? Because I remember we had a Teams call or something, and we talked about this could be pedestrian hybrid beacons. This could be raised markers on the highway,
Yeah.
rumble strips.
So at that time, I think we had submitted for an action plan at a higher level and going for the capital projects like rumble strips or crosswalks, that type of thing, we need to have the action plan in place. So this helps that. I think that as Will said, these planning dollars are really undersubscribed. So with Mint Hill ending up with a document that's an action plan, not only does it help our region to help pull everything together, but if you end up applying to an IIJA grant, or we come back as a region and say, look at all of these needs we have, then we go for that. Yeah, it honestly, the first year it took a while to get our head around what all is needed. And we were so stuck on the match amount. And then when we had a call with USDOT and also talking with FHWA, like all of a sudden it became like, oh, we can really do this. This isn't as hard as we were making it. And so I think we've got some more promise, but I would love to see all of that done. Reflective paint, rumble strips. I mean, there's just a ton of work.
So we lost points on those capital tries because we did not have this.
We at that time, we were still doing the action plan. So we weren't set up to do the capital. You've got to have the action plan done first.
Okay.
To know where everything is going to go. Yep.
Thanks.
Yep.
So a quick question about the in-kind hours, like sort of practically speaking, if me or someone in my office is working on safety projects, like does that count towards the hours? Like how, or do we have to, like, I'm trying to figure out, most of the time you give work to a consultant and they do their thing and we have, you know, quarterly meetings or monthly meetings, you know, what else, what kind of work are you all looking for us to do to fill this requirement?
Yeah, so off the top of our heads, the bulk of it is prepping for public engagement or hosting a steering committee meeting, or again, prepping for that steering committee meeting. It's a lot of the preparations that you're doing internally for public engagement. That would be a really big piece. We found that requesting safety data, so if you're gathering safety data from the state or if you're requesting that from a private consultant, the cost of not only the staff time, but the cost of getting that safety data is in kind. That can translate to in kind time. Yeah, it's really any staff time dedicated to safety planning in support of the grant.
So we've done a lot of that work already. Is that going to count towards the grant? Because I know I've been spending quality time trying to pull together a Vision Zero plan document that we haven't adopted yet. We're going to the Vision Zero Institute up at Chapel Hill for the town of Matthews in June. Like we're dedicating a lot of time. Will that time count towards this grant, or do we have to get the grant first and then the clock starts?
Yeah, we couldn't backdate it. Okay. What is your envisioned adoption timeline for that?
The University of North Carolina at Charlotte did 2 Vision Zero documents for us, the students did. And we're trying to figure out a way to cobble them together to make a document. So we have pieces. I don't know. Okay. So quite frankly, and so that's why we're going to we applied to go to the Institute this summer in June to try to figure all of that out. Okay. Put us in a room with experts to tell us what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong.
Sure. I asked that because again, I would say timeline wise, by the time we're ready to actually start collecting these in-kind hours, y'all might be in a stage where you're carrying forward that plan's recommendations, or again, just figuring out how to compile the plans. That's when you could start counting in kind.
Because we would want to be connected with with the work for the region. We don't want to be Matthews. We like to think of ourselves as, we're a regional stakeholder. We want to connect with what's going on. So I don't know if if we provide you all that information and then you can incorporate it into the bigger document, or how that would work.
That would be great. Yeah. And that's what I said earlier, where we're aware of communities that have Vision Zero action plans in progress. We're not just paving over those, no pun intended. We're truly trying to integrate that into the work that we're doing.
Yeah. So we are, like I said, we're trying our hardest, but it's been, we didn't want to hire a consultant. So we did the student route thing.
That's great. Yeah. That sounds super exciting. So excited to plug into that work with y'all. Yes.
The weeds, but documenting her in-kind contribution, I feel
Mhm.
like that's gonna be a big kind of lift. Is that us or you, or like, will that count towards the in-kind?
Yes, yeah, we'll set up the systems to do that. We'll certainly make sure that that's not burdensome. Maybe even the time logging your in-kind hours is in-kind hours, who knows? Great questions. This has been good. Yes, sir.
Does NCDOT bill hours to this?
Good question.
That's
Yeah,
a cash match, so they could.
yeah.
So
They-
the fact that 500, that covers everything.
You're doing cash match.
Yeah, they're contributing the 500 in cash. Yeah, I mean, the safety unit has offered themselves as advisors to this. So the time spent reviewing the work, that's a good question. Yeah. I'll take note of that. Yeah. Thanks, Bjorn.
Any more questions?
Okay.
Great discussion. I'll just remind everyone as someone that sits in the seat as many of the people in the room, I understand your concern in wanting to fully understand what we're asking our elected officials to take action on later this month. So great discussion. I'll just remind you, this is passing a resolution to submit for the application, which still gives us time to continue to have these sorts of conversations so we can get a whole lot smarter about how to answer those questions of our elected officials if they have some concerns.
Ditto. Yeah.
Right. Thank you. May I have a motion to recommend that the CRTPO board adopt a resolution in support of the CRTPO Safe Streets and Roads for All application?
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Thank you. That passes
you.
unanimously. All right, now we're going to get an update from Travis on the 2026-2035 TIP process, NCDOT's prioritization 7.0.
There we go. Hi, everyone. Travis Johnson here. We're going to talk about prioritization 7.0. I came here last month, had a lot of information, a lot of abbreviations, and a lot of dates. So I just want to make sure that all these information was on top of our minds as we get ready to go through the prioritization process, which should hopefully bring millions of dollars to our region and make us happy, skip through the streets with all the great things we receive. So I want to go over some key concepts. I'm going to talk about the local input points overview, again, how we're going to assign those points to those projects to figure out what we can affect and what goes into our TIP and STIP. And then the scheduled milestones that we have for P7, again, the public engagement, because again, the public feedback and public engagement part is an essential part of any planning process. So again, prioritization 7.0 will help us to create the 2026-2035 TIP and STIP. So this list is a part of that process. So the STIP and TIP are not only these projects, but they do go into these projects, or these projects do go into that list and become part of that process. So that's important to remember, is that these inform that, but we still make amendments, and there are other processes to get projects into the TIP, into the STIP. There are maintenance projects in there. There's a lot of other stuff that's in there that's not part of this process. But these are the projects that we are submitting for the prioritization process, which is P 7.0. So local point assignment. I've been saying that a lot, and I heard there was some confusion over that. That is when we apply our local input points to 2 of the 3 tiers we have available to affect the overall score, essentially saying, we understand what the rough score is, but we have local knowledge and understand that these projects are important. And we have created a methodology to prioritize that. So for highway, again, that's taking the 2050 MTP rank and horizon year. And we created the methodology to rank those projects and apply projects to that. But then we also have the ability to deviate from that if it doesn't seem like it's fundable if it seems like we have a lot of public feedback. So there are opportunities to tweak that, but we have to follow our agreed upon methodology, which we'll go over. And then who adds local input points? The MPO, so the C or TPO, but then also NCDOT. So while there is available 30 points of or 30% of the overall score for regional impact and 50% of the overall score by divisions, it is a collaboration, and we can only affect half of that as an MPO, and then we're limited to the available points that we have. So if you're looking at the P7.0 list and you say, oh, well, there's something missing from this, that this is a local priority, we need this. It's not the time to add it to P7. Right now, we're finishing up the data review process. We're going into the local point assignment, which is, again, following our methodology and trying to show where we have local preference based upon the approved 7.0 methodology. But now is the time to be thinking about prioritization 8.0, because that'll be here before you realize it. So again, checking the CTP, making sure that is up to date. As Neil talked about, we're kicking off the 2055 MTP process. So there'll be a call for projects and submittals for that. So if you see something that's missing from that, identifying where it is, either if it's existing project on the STIP or TIP, if it's in the CTP, making sure that that route is currently up to date and modifying that as needed. But again, then your focus should be focusing on the 2055 MTP, being a great partner with that, participating and making sure the projects are properly reflected and submitted. Has there been public engagement? Yes, we did public engagement before we submitted the list, put it on the website, we collected feedback. As part of this process, we'll have 2 more public engagement periods, and that's for when we're going to apply local points, again, focusing on regional impact and division needs. Statewide projects, we do not have local input points. We just get the points from the spot office. They tell us how it ranked, and those projects cascade down to regional impact, which we have the option to then apply local impact points. And then also division. So we'll have 2 more public comment periods, which we'll share the dates for again, because those times will show up quickly, which will have a 14-day public comment period for where we're applying local input points. The public will have a chance to then provide feedback on where we put those points. And then after all of this is done, in January, we'll have the draft TIP, and there'll be more public involvement, more public input. So we have lots of steps still to go. So you might be saying to yourself, well, can I see the current TIP or can I see the current STIP? Yes, you can. So that is available on the NCDOT's website. It's also available on our website, and we have cropped it to just our region. There's a long web address here, which is at crtpo.org. You can also scan this QR code. It will take you straight to the page we have dedicated to our current adopted TIP and STIP. You'll see a lot of projects in the region. So if you're ever saying, hey, where is the status of this project? Where is this project? We have the interactive map. You can go find it there. And that might answer any questions you might have in your community. So with that, key concepts, we're going to move on to our local input points. Again, go into an overview of how we're going to apply that. So we have 3 funding buckets available for these projects. 40% of the funds are going to statewide mobility, and these projects compete against the entire state of North Carolina, and that's where 40% of the funds go to. We receive our scores from the spot office, and that's just the score. And so it's based upon criteria, which we'll go over in the next slide, but that's just the score, that's where it shows up. So then regional impact projects, we have the ability to apply 30% of the overall points, but they still have that base score set by the spot office. So we are affecting a small portion of that final score. And these funds are distributed throughout the state based upon NCDOT regions and population. So the population of the NCDOT region of which you are in dictates how much funds of that 30% total is available to you. So if you are in Iredell, you have a different set of funds that are available to you than if you are in Mecklenburg or Union. So it's important when you see projects and you see allocation for projects in the regional impact tier, because you're in different regions. Additionally, the division needs, which it goes into our 2 divisions that we have here, again, Division 10, Division 12, Mecklenburg and Union, again, are in Division 10, and Iredell is in Division 12. So again, you have different your division goes beyond our planning region. And so there are other communities, there are other things that are going on that affect where the funds go and what the projects are available. And again, we are only half of the local points assignment. So it's important that you think about that when we think about where the projects are going, what funding is available, and what projects can be produced. So for statewide, we're looking at congestion, travel time, safety, freight, economic competitiveness, and multimodal. For regional impact, congestion, travel time, safety, accessibility, freight. But then this is when the local input point comes into effect. If we apply our local input points, which is 100 points, that would then account for an additional 15%. So it's 100 times 0.15, which is then added to the overall total. And then we have to get in line, or not, we would then also have to work with our partners at NCDOT to hope that they would also prioritize that project as well, to then account for the other 15%. And then the same thing with division, except for it's a higher percentage. So our local input point would affect 25% of that score, and then our NCDOT partners would affect the other 25%. And again, it's a colorful graph of it. You're a more visual learner to see how that affects the overall score. What is the weighted criteria? So this is how we come to the scores that we will see on the draft tip, which would then come out in January. So we are working through this process. Through these next few months, we'll be assigning those local impact points. And then when you see that final score in January, these are all the parts that come together, which creates that final score. So for regional impact, we have 2,500 total points. So we'll be applying 2,125 towards highway and 375 to non-highway. And then for division needs, 2,000 to highway, 500 to non-highway projects. And as part of the SCI legislation, we have to use a methodology to assign these points based on quantitative data, qualitative input, and modal allocation. We apply local input points based, or MPOs are provided local input points based upon our population. So we have one of the higher local input points that we are allowed to distribute due to our overall size as an MPO. And then we're allowed to allocate no more than 100 local input points to projects. That's the hard stops, 100 points per each of these projects. So we can't just put 1,000 points on one project. Important also when applying this methodology is that the projects have to have a reasonable chance to be funded. So we'll see that sometimes when projects cascade, and what that means is if it's in a higher tier and it doesn't get enough points, it moves down to the next project tier, which is a different funding bucket of funds. And so if there's a project that say moves down that's very highly ranked, but costs $4.3 billion, you wouldn't necessarily apply local points to it because it would be unfunded in that tier. So that'd be an opportunity where maybe you'd see a project, it would have a lot of points, but you know there's no money for it. So you would save those points to other projects in that tier that would then reasonable chance of being funded. And so that's important factors that come into this. Is it's not just the methodology, it is the estimated budget of the funds that we have available. Also working with the public. There's a large public outcry. That can be a methodology for why a local point assignment might skip a project or might go somewhere else, is because the public feedback is essential and important as part of this process. So we need to work together. We need to coordinate with the divisions to achieve mutual point assignment, because again, we are half of a percentage of a total score, which is why it's important to work with the divisions and making sure that we all are able to apply our points to where our communities need them efficiently. Also, when projects, if they cascade down, if a statewide project, let's say, cascades all the way to a division level, we cannot apply local points to that at the division tier. So if it's unfunded to regional impact, that's where it stops, and it would not be considered for that further step. And then the board may divert local input points, again, public impact. So we're going to enter those comment periods. That's a big reason why to get your citizens to provide feedback, to look at the routes, to provide us comments, because they can affect local impacts. But we need to hear that feedback. So for highway, we tie it to the 2055 MTP process, which took into account congestion, safety, accessibility to deployment for a tier 1 evaluation, and then went to tier 2 evaluation for EJ impacts, natural resources, system connectivity. So all that went into the 2050 MTP, which was then adopted by the board. So we have those lists of projects. So we sort the projects that were submitted to prioritization 7.0 based upon their MTP horizon year, which is the year which we estimated that they would be open to the public, and then also their MTP score, meaning the higher ranked project receives priority. We sort the projects based upon that information. prioritization has been around for a few years now. And so there are some projects that have existed in this process for a while. So if they do not have a MTP score and they do not have a horizon year, we will then default to the P 7.0 score, which is provided by NCDOT spot office. So if it doesn't have those two metrics, that is the third metric we will use for highway. So we will sort the list, we will work together with that, and we have collected a committee to review that process with us of TCC members and transportation professionals to help us evaluate that list, which we will bring back to the TCC for review. For non-highway projects, we use the P7 score provided by the spot office, and every mode receives one allocation of local points. So what that means is the top ranked project of each mode will receive the 100-point allocation. That essentially means that each project category in the prioritization process will receive a points. But as we know, with the 90% of it going towards highway, the majority of the projects which we'll be funding as part of this process is those highway projects. My proposed P7 draft subcommittee is up here. These are people who have agreed to serve and help us review the list. And again, they will just watch us sort the list, go through the list based upon those categories we've presented, provide feedback if we know any local knowledge about issues that might come up or reasons to skip. And then we will bring those lists to the TCC for review and comment. Those lists will also go to the public for comment, and then they'll come back to the board for endorsement. 2025 will be here before we realize it. So it's important to keep in mind that we're moving these dates along. So it's going to look like we have a long time, but we actually have a very short period of time to get through all of this. These times were adjusted in March. So this month, we should be receiving our scores for the projects that we submitted in prioritization 7.0. We will then meet in June with the P7 subcommittee, proposed the previous slide. We will work through the projects for regional impact, create that draft list of the projects that are receiving local input points, and then bring it to you in July for action to receive the proposed list and to open a public comment period to send that to the board. The board will then receive the list of proposed local input points and open a public comment period. We'll then open a public comment period from July 18th to August 1st. We will provide a summary of those comments, make any adjustments as needed to the August TCC meeting, but then the recommendation then will become to recommend to assign the local input points to the project in the list, and then that'll go to the board at the end of August. And so this would be for the regional impact level. We would then do it all again for the division level projects. And so again, we'll have a list of projects, we'll create that list in September with the committee, come back to you in October for the review of the list where we're assigning local input points, and then also to open a public comment period to have your communities come back and provide feedback on those lists. October 18th to November 1st will be the public comment period, and then come back to the board and the TCC for recommendation of the projects of which we have assigned the local points to. And it's important that this process completes in November because we need to then provide the local input point allocations of the projects back to the spot office. So then that way they can create the draft tip. And so we can start that process, which is again, reviewing the projects, making sure everything's accurate, and then working through that process. So that was a lot. This is similar to what I said last month. And I just know it's a lot. So we'll keep coming back and sharing this information. So does anyone have any questions?
I just have one question. Is this the step that you've had the disclaimer on in the past that there's not really any new projects coming out of? Or is that like P6.0? I feel like there's a version of the step that.
So the P7.0 process, which we just did, we only were able to add 4 new projects due to the amount of existing projects, which was the list of projects was brought to this TCC, was reviewed, and was adopted by the board. So every project that was submitted was reviewed and was agreed upon. We have not seen an official estimate for funds for this cycle So I do not know how much money is available currently officially.
Thank you.
Okay. We have not seen that funds. Once we receive that information from NCDOT, we'll share that because that'll be an important part of point allocation.
Brian Horton, and that was going to be my question too, because the timing, I mean, you get the scores from the spot office and highway divisions are going to look at geographic balance and cost also for outside the planning area. But the cost factor needs to be known as how far the dollars are going to go based to manipulate the rankings, right? Because there's a straightforward ranking process. Wherever you deviate from that, it's really kind of geographic or cost factors that are usually at fault or being accounted for if positive. So there is no estimate yet of the STIP unit or others saying how much the STI can afford in this P7 bucket, all these buckets.
We have not received an official estimate as of this time. I will let anyone else provide us if they have those numbers, but I've not seen an official estimate. And so as soon as I receive that information, we will add it. Yeah, we know that's an essential.
That's really
part.
essential for the scoring. Yeah.
Yes.
So I know one of the main things that they needed to develop those numbers was what inflation factor the Board of Transportation was going to use. It's my understanding that was being voted on or proposed and voted on. I think it's today or yesterday when they met. So they should be available soon, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully soon. Yeah, we'll update this. And again, we have the project website, update the information there as well. Put this information out there because that is an essential component. And we're looking to, again, maximize and efficiently use the funds as much as possible and get as much as we can for the region. And so it's why it's so important that we go through this process to make sure we put the highest ranked projects or the ones that are most likely to be done forward. Because it's about bringing high quality transportation solutions to our region.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you. I'll be back soon too, so don't worry.
All right, moving on to our last item on the agenda, other reports. As always, Sean and Anil have provided construction updates for Division 10 and 12. And those were included in your packet. They are here with us today. So if you have any questions, feel free to grab them after the meeting. Roger, you have an update for us from Transportation Planning.
Sure, just a brief update. In the agenda packet, there should be the newsletter there that'll cover a few things. I just want to cover some key highlights. The NC Complete the Trails program, which is also abbreviated CTP, but not to be confused with the Comprehensive Transportation Plan. It provides funding for planning, construction, maintenance of state trails, and municipalities that want to connect to those state trails can apply. The local match requirements for that are dependent on the population of the municipality applying, and the application deadline for that is on the 29th. If you're interested, the link should be in the newsletter. Also, FHWA has a website providing bicycle and pedestrian resources and a table with bike ped funding opportunities. So if you're interested in that, there's also a link for that in the agenda packet as well. I was also going to mention Safe Streets for All, but it looks like y'all had that covered. So I'll skip over that. But there's also a link to a toolkit that covers reducing vehicle mileage travel and information about travel demand management in there. So if you're interested in looking at that toolkit, there's a link for that as well in the packet. And one thing that I did not include in the packet, sorry about that, but I just wanted to let y'all know in case, I know probably most of the municipalities here in the CRTPO region have been a part of the Powell bill funds, but just in case, there's a few dates coming up in case you're interested in you're not a part of that to apply. This is primarily for resurfacing streets, but can be used for other purposes like maintaining, repairing, constructing, widening within the municipalities, as well as planning, construction and maintenance for greenways, bikeways, and sidewalks. You can either Google Powell Bill Funds NCDOT for that, or if you want to reach out to me, I can provide you the website for that. But there will be 2 training sessions for using the reporting system in June. And then there'll also be some key dates coming up soon as well for that, but those are on the website as well. But if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. My contact info is also in the newsletter as well. So, but that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Alex, integrated mobility update.
Yes, thank you. Good morning. Three updates I wanted to give today. Well, the first is that we just recently announced that on May 23rd, we're going to do another one of our IMD quarterly webinars, which kind of gives updates on the different things we're working on. I sometimes learn some things myself attending those. So we're doing all kinds of things regarding multimodal transportation here in the state. The second is a resource that was actually released last year, but it was the PM on that retired shortly after it was finished. So we didn't really roll it out or talk about it very much. So I'm starting to do that with the various MPOs I work with. It's called the Interim Design Safety Pilot Project. And it kind of ties into what Will was talking about earlier. The idea behind this project, we used some federal funds to produce this, so it's low cost interim design safety countermeasures on state-owned and maintained roadways. So we did a lot of pilots working with various divisions across the state in order to produce this document. It emphasizes safety for pedestrians, bicyclists through a risk and exposure reduction at intersections. So I'm going to send a link to that directly to that document to Travis, and hopefully he can get that out to you shortly. And the last thing is that I was kind of surprised by it, but on NC Plan listserv this week, there was an email that went out saying that IMD is looking to assist communities for this one's a weird one, the US DOT Active Transportation Infrastructure Investment Program, or the ATIIP. And that's what that is used for is discretionary money for planning, design, and construction for bike ped projects. It's a relatively low amount compared to some of the other projects that are coming out there. But they had a link to a survey. So that is to say, my colleagues at IMD. And so if you're interested, they're looking to provide technical support. And it wasn't clear to me if they're looking to do a potential application for multiple municipalities. Again, this was news to me. But they had a survey. So if you guys have something kind of that's been sitting there that you're interested in, maybe looking for this funding for, the deadline is tomorrow. And it's at 5 p.m. So so they announced on Tuesday. So I'm not really sure what they were looking for there. But if that is something you're interested in, I will be very happy to get you the information in that survey. It's an online survey that you can just fill in some information. And then I presume someone at IMD will get back to you to see if they can offer assistance. So that's it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Jennifer.
Hi, Jennifer Stafford, CRTPO. We had a call for shortfall projects opened on March 1st and closed on April 30th, Tuesday. We received 2 applications, one from Waxhaw, one from Cornelius. We are in the middle of, or at the very start of, reviewing estimates. Cornelius's estimate is pretty complex. So the Project Oversight Committee will probably meet on May 23rd and not next week. So we can give you time to review the score and the reasons why they're looking for the shortfalls. I will remind everybody that Cornelius had a handful of shortfall projects last fall that was submitted. And the one they've submitted this year was one that was suggested they come back in the springtime and resubmit. So you'll see that request come, and then Waxhaw's request is very, very small. So more information to come on that. We will do a information session in hopefully June, and then request action in July. So that's all. Any questions on that?
All right, thank you. Curtis, you have a bike ped work group report for us.
I have no major updates. I would point everyone to your agenda in the TCC agenda. We are going to talk about the SEAM, get an update from our consultant on the SEAM study, kind of where we are and some next steps, as well as some potential near-term funding options. So we'll have that discussion this afternoon. I was hoping to be able to announce that our bicycle suitability mapping RFQ was on the streets, but I can't. But look forward to that in the next week or so. Hopefully, it'll be out there. Also, it's May, which is Bike Month, so everybody look forward to some bicycling opportunities over the next month. That's all I've got. Any questions that I can answer? No?
Thank
All
you,
right. Thank
Curtis. All right, last but not least, Travis.
Thank you very much. As an announcement for everyone in this room, as about an education opportunity that Turnpike will be providing. So an education session will be conducted on the North Carolina Turnpike Authority at 5 p.m. in room 267 at the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Government Center prior to the May 15th CRTPO board meeting. So the TCC and board members are encouraged to attend to learn how the Turnpike Authority works with NCDOT, MPOs, and municipalities to evaluate, plan, and operate tolled facilities throughout North Carolina. So great education opportunity to learn a lot about the Turnpike Authority. I know I'm excited to learn about how they all work together more. So I strongly encourage everyone to attend. We'll be here, and then you get to stay for the board meeting. So what's better than that? So that's all ends this.
When you say prior, is that 5 o'clock?
Yeah, 5 p.m. So 5 p.m. in room 267 prior to the May 15th CRTPO board meeting. Be a great time. I look forward to seeing everyone.
All right, thank you. That concludes our agenda. I'll pause for a moment if anybody has any last minute comments or questions. Yeah, go ahead, Dave.
I just wanted to add a couple comments on Bike Month activities. Charlotte DOT, we set up a display in the lobby. So if you haven't seen it on your way in, check it out on your way out. You'll notice it when you see a bunch of bikes in the lobby. We did that for anyone who works or regularly visits the building and wants to get here more often by bike. There's a variety of bikes there that aren't just the steel frame road bikes that you might have seen in your younger days. Bikes are getting a lot better to make your bike commute a lot more efficient, a lot easier. So go check them out. And then if you do work in the building, or even if you're regularly here, we're also doing a lunchtime workshop. May 16th, 12 noon here in the building. If you are interested in learning how to bike commute, come and you'll hear from some people who regularly do bike commute to the building, how they do it, how they plan routes, how they stay safe, things like that. I've got some flyers here. I left some over near the water as well. So come talk to me, or hopefully see you at that workshop, and check out the bikes down below. Thanks.
Thank you. All right. Well, with that, as always, thank you for your time and participation in the important transportation planning work that we do for this region. With that, we have completed all items on the agenda, and we are adjourned.